WRKS Pickens Jackson.
All systems go.
Live from the Whiskey 61 Lounge inside the Bank Plus studio.
This is Now Warning.
Live in the studio.
It's the Out of Bounds Show with Low Bounds. Streaming live worldwide on the Out of Bounds radio app. And on your radio at ESPN 105.9.
All set? Let's go.
The Zone.
Oh, man, oh, man, oh, man. I think that was a quick turnaround. Woo! It's Thursday. The weekend starts on Thursday. You know that. For our show. May not for some. For our world. In our world, the weekend starts on Thursday. Gotta have it. Gotta have it. Right? That's like y'all lifestyle 101. That's what I'm going to teach later, Blake. When I kind of ease back. Yeah. I'll teach y'all lifestyle 101. Or do I do that already? Huh. Bo the philosopher. Anyway, True Maroon says good morning. So glad that we got at least one listener on the dial. Out of Bounds, powered by the Golden Moon Casino Sportsbook. Bet $50 there. Play Dancing Rabbit Golf Club. Award-winning Dancing Rabbit Golf Club for $30. We're streaming live on the Out of Bounds radio app. Farm Bureau Insurance call-in line, 601-707-3750. Twitter handle at BowBounds. And the Mississippi Ag John Deere Tractor text line is always 601-885-3776. We'll have Mike Bianco at 9:30 today. Head baseball coach at Ole Miss. Coach Bianco will stop by, hang out with us for a few minutes. 9:30 this morning. And then and then at 8:30 we'll have Steve Palazzolo, Pro Football Focus, PFF. That's our super duper NFL QB hit that we do. And I'm looking forward to that. Weird that this whole Chicago Bears Russell Wilson thing continues to heat up. I don't know if it's just nonsense, right? And a bunch of drama. Or if they're, where there's smoke, there's fire.
Who's good at finding fire in sports? Vegas. You know what Vegas did?
Did they throw some odds out on Russell, my main man Wilson?
Well, there's been odds out on where he might go, or whether that's stay in Seattle or go to any of his four teams that he liked.
Well, he's not going to the Cowboys.
Or any others.
We can take that one off. Check.
But you know what happened over the last, I don't know, about 36 hours?
He bought a really, really, really cool flat condo in Las Vegas.
No, well, I wish that would be big news.
Yeah.
No, Vegas increased the odds for the Bears' Super Bowl chances.
Interesting.
Now, who increases a team's ability to win the Super Bowl?
A quarterback.
And maybe a big edge rusher. That's about it.
Not a running back.
Yeah. So rumors are now circulating.
Whoa!
Could
we
Russell,
love rumors.
Could Vegas have a bead on where Russell Wilson is headed, or Deshaun Watson? Could it be that?
Yes, they could. That
because the Bears' odds did not increase because Mitchell Trubisky's coming back, baby,
or because they're like honing in on Case Keenum.
Yeah.
God,
exactly.
I've really beat up on Case Keenum.
Yeah,
lately.
you're a Case hater.
God, it's just somebody that I think of that's a fringe NFL quarterback.
I mean,
he's no Taysom Hill, but whatever, right?
Oh, goodness.
Hey, did Sean Payton not play Jameis Winston so as to not drive up
his
market value and play Taysom Hill this past year so that because Jameis is a free agent and if plan A, B, C, D, E, and F doesn't work out for the Saints, and believe me, they're trying to figure out if they can do anything on the market, but he basically drove Jameis's market value down even more by not playing him and playing Taysom Hill, which we all knew was ridiculous. Taysom Hill's not an NFL QB.
Yeah, they do that in baseball all the time. So it wouldn't surprise me if a football coach did that.
Okay,
that makes sense. Why not? If you have a commodity, why would you want everyone? And it's a commodity that's going to be up for sale, and you're going to have to repurchase. Why would you want people to know its true value?
Great point.
Yeah,
great. So is Sean the mad scientist Peyton? If Will Wade is our American gangster, then Sean is definitely one of our mad scientists. maybe along with Mike Leach, but that's a whole other deal. So did Sean Payton do that on purpose? You know what? I'm not going to play you. I'm going to play Taysom Hill, who I've way overpaid, just to get through this thing because I know we're still going to the playoffs. Unbelievable.
I've heard that rumor floated. It would make sense because
you just heard it from me.
He was able to. He didn't need Jameis to win games this year.
No,
they were
he's
able
Sean
to
Payton.
kind of put things together.
He could win. I don't know.
But the question is, can he win in December and January?
No, that's a great point. That's a great point.
With Jameis.
I know. And people still believe that Jameis is really talented. He does like to throw the ball a little bit too much to the other team, but that he can still do some cool things. I don't know.
Look at Bull on the Mississippi Ag text line. Where's Aaron Jones going? We were just talking about Aaron Jones.
I can't get into that.
I love our
Patrick
listeners.
says, good morning from Atlanta, and Walker says, good morning from reigning Ohio. So we've got some guys listening. One's over in Hot Atlanta. The other one is in Buckeye country. Or is it Buckeye country or Baker Mayfield country? What would NFL Chuck say? I don't know. We may have to. I've been texting NFL Chuck. I told him to get ready for the NFL draft. He's ready. He's ready.
You see who's getting a lot of love lately in the NFL draft?
Hold on. Let me guess. Is it a quarterback?
No, it's a very obvious player from the state of Mississippi.
Elijah Moore. Who was the first one on Elijah Moore? We were.
Yeah, he's very talented.
I mean, we ripped the Band-Aid off and said he's a star. Let's stop, trying to maybe say it or discuss it or whatnot. He's a star. He played 10 conference games this year and averaged 150 yards receiving. There was no Wofford, UT Chattanooga, or La Monroe. Dude's a star. I hope the Cowboys take him in the second round. So,
that'd be amazing.
Live in the Bank Plus studio, the Out of Bounds show is powered by Mississippi Sports Medicine and Orthopedic Center. Some people, I love doing this because if I go with Matt Corral, it throws Mississippi State people off. If I go with Will Rogers, it throws Ole Miss people off. Obviously, Matt Corral, you could argue. No, you couldn't argue. Would be, I think, the second most talented. He may be as talented as Trevor. I don't know, but he would be the second most talented quarterback in this draft. I mean, I think he'd be a top 5 pick. But he decided to stay. He's going to go to stay at Ole Miss and try to win a lot of games in his what is supposed to be his redshirt junior year, but you can run the numbers however you want to run it. You know what I was thinking about with Will Rogers? I think that Will Rogers, well, obviously he played amazing football this past year, considering a bunch of freshmen around him. The world was melting down around him. Literally. They had 47 players. But he looked like he was playing a side yard football game. Like he wasn't phased whatsoever. As I was reading this Drew Brees article this morning on NOLA.com, which if you want to check it out, it's pretty good. I thought it could have had a little more meat and sizzle to it, but whatever. Actually, when I got to the end of it, I thought, did I waste my time? But anyway, here's the point. I was thinking about this. Will Rogers. All right, so Matt Corral's got, he's super athletic, got this huge arm. He's a little north of 6'2". He's still putting on weight. I mean, he's a pretty big kid. I mean, he's not as big as Eli or Dak or whatever, but he's plenty big, plenty strong. Filthy athletic. Very deceiving as far as what he can do. Will Rogers may be Mississippi State's Drew Brees.
Oh.
Here's a kid who's off the charts between the ears, coach's son. The whole world was melting down around him this year. He had every excuse to play like absolute dog you-know-what. And yet, every week he got a little bit better. Every week he'd make another throw, and people were like, and nobody knew who he was throwing to because all of them were 18 years old. And they never settled on an offensive line until the last game of the season. It was just a complete S show. Everything was melting down around him. I'm telling you, you look at his size, stature, mental grit, intestinal fortitude. I think you got little Drew Brees and Will Rogers. The Out of Bounds show is powered by Mississippi Sports Medicine and Orthopedic Center. That's MississippiSportsMedicine.com for you. Big board coming up next, then SEC Insider Hit. Bianco at 9:30.
Let's do it.
This is the SEC Insider Hit. And it's presented by Blue Cross Blue Shield of Mississippi. It's good to be blue.
Oh, good morning. Welcome in the Out of Bounds Show, brought to you by Blue Cross Blue Shield of Mississippi. It's good to be blue, the official healthcare provider of the Out of Bounds Show. Blue Cross Blue Shield of Mississippi. You're listening to ESPN 105.9 The Zone. The Out of Bounds Show, we're streaming live on the Out of Bounds radio app, thezone1059.com, and you can watch the show right now on YouTube. Search Out of Bounds Sports. Our guests join us on the Shinerbach guest line. We welcome in David Hellman, Cowboys insider. He is the guy, DallasCowboys.com. And big news coming out of Dallas yesterday as Dak and the Cowboys agree to a long-term deal. And David, good morning. How much sleep are you working on? And we lost him. All right. So we'll work on getting him back. How about that? Live in the Bank Plus studio, David Hellman joins us on the Shinerbach guest line, Cowboys insider. David, how much sleep are you working off of?
Not very much, to answer your question. I think I was up late working on stuff because of the deal, and then it's not like I got paid, so I don't know why I had a hard time. I don't know why I had a hard time sleeping, but I shot awake at probably like 5 o'clock, so I've just kind of been hanging out. So yeah, not a lot, but adrenaline helps you in situations like this.
No question. David, at the end of the day, did Dak really give up anything in this contract?
That's a great point. And no, and people don't often like it, but quarterbacks have a way of winning these types of negotiations. Honestly, I figured Dak was going to win because, again, if you're a capable quarterback worthy of being paid at the top of the market, you usually do. But on top of that, he gets his deal. It's technically a 6-year deal that voids down to 4. So I guess the Cowboys do have that comfort to help them spread the cap hit out. But Dak can still be eligible for free agency in 4 years when he's only 31 years old. He's got a no franchise tag clause in this new deal, so this will be the last time he ever has to deal with a tag. And he's got a no trade clause, so he's in charge of any other destinations he might go to. So, any way you slice it, I think it's a really good deal for the Cowboys because they get a great quarterback under contract. But this is a big, big win for Dak Prescott, and I think it kind of shows why it took so long for this deal to get done.
He is David Hellman. Follow him on Twitter at HellmanDC, DallasCowboys.com. He joins us on the Shinerbach guest line. Why do you think Jerry and Steven decided to do it now instead of maybe July 10th, David?
A couple reasons. Firstly, because it sounds counterintuitive, but getting this done helps them maneuver their finances for this coming league year. They could have tagged him. They would have had to carry $38 million on the cap. Nobody wants to do that in a year. Well, you don't want to do that anyway, but you definitely don't want to do it in a year where the salary cap's not expected to grow by a whole lot because of COVID. So Dak's cap hit for this year is actually only $22 million, which is, for us, that's a hell of a lot of money. But in terms of NFL quarterbacks, that's nothing, in a league where Deshaun Watson's getting 40 a year and Carson Wentz's cap hit to not be on the Philadelphia Eagles is actually $33 million. So that's a bargain, and it's going to help the Cowboys sign free agents. It's going to help them maneuver around. They don't have to restructure other players' deals if they don't want to. And then there's also the risk of, if you carry this thing on for 3 or 4 more months, maybe it gets a little contentious. Maybe Dak says, all right, you guys clearly don't believe in me, so I'm going to test free agency and not sign. And then you probably lose Dak next year. So for a variety of reasons, I think it was really smart for them to get this out of the way.
Now, all right, Dak Prescott has signed for $164 million, $126 guaranteed. We're visiting with Cowboys insider David Hellman on the Out of Bounds show, DallasCowboys.com. With the number 10 pick in the draft, what direction do you think that the Cowboys go? Offense, defense, trade back? How do you see that right now?
Yeah, that's, again, there's a million reasons why this was smart to get out of the way. And part of it is that you can now focus your draft strategy on what makes this team better, for Dak Prescott. You don't have to worry about drafting a quarterback or, whether or not you're going to have Dak, yada, yada. And for me, I think it sets you up to draft purely. There's no way to know for sure who will be there, who might slip to you, who might offer you some crazy trade package. But that does free you up because, let's say a quarterback falls to the Cowboys now. Well, you could use that as trade bait now instead of maybe needing to draft a quarterback to cover yourself. So if you put a gun to my head this morning, I would say defense, just because I think that's where the value lines up. If I had to bet on it, I think the Cowboys will draft a cornerback with that pick. But, if an offensive tackle falls to you or something like that, you could maybe go that way. But, I think it's a load off their minds that they don't have that weighing on them when they consider these other draft prospects.
Sure. David Hellman on the Out of Bounds show. So, David, what do they have to do on the offense? This offensive line has been riddled with injuries, and now this phenomenal group of 5 or 6 years ago is older. It's longer in the tooth. So what is realistic that they can do in this offseason to protect Dak?
Well, call me a total optimist, but I think the nice thing is I really don't think you have to do that much, to be honest with you. Do they need to protect themselves? Yes. Tyron Smith, he's getting close to 30, and he's dealt with a variety of injury issues over the last 5 years. Lyle Collins is coming off an injury that forced him to miss the entire season. The good news is both those guys are under contract. They're both rehabbing their injuries. They're both expected to be back. So You're not necessarily looking for starting offensive tackles right now. You'll get Zach Martin back from injury as well. So the vast majority of those really talented players are coming back. And so I think the priority now is protecting yourself in case of another injury. Does that mean you draft an offensive tackle 10th overall? Does it mean you sign somebody in free agency? It's hard to say. But I would guess, I really think they'll probably draft an offensive tackle with one of their first 3 or 4 picks. Doesn't necessarily have to be a first rounder, but just kind of protect yourself because they've got quality starters. I think the key is just getting a little bit of an insurance policy.
With Mike McCarthy and the way that everything looked up until Dak was injured, and it looked discombobulated. You could argue on offense, but definitely on defense. I know Dak was putting up big numbers, but they were getting down and so on. This guy is a veteran coach. He won a Super Bowl with the Green Bay Packers, but they just didn't look like a well-oiled machine. Why? Is there still confidence that McCarthy's the guy and that this thing will look better next September, David?
Well, from the Cowboys' perspective, yeah, I think there's still a lot of confidence. I think, it's a very good point. They looked bad enough that I wouldn't trust anybody on the outside from having shaken confidence. I think Mike McCarthy really underestimated how difficult it is to install a scheme and put an offense and a defense together during a pandemic. Everybody says, all throughout the offseason, people say the virtual meetings are amazing and we didn't even need to have all these practices, but it sure looked like they needed it when the game started. And so I don't think it's a coincidence that Mike McCarthy went and hired Dan Quinn as his defensive coordinator. They essentially went right back to the scheme that they used to run before McCarthy got here. He tried to install something new with Mike Mullen. To say it was a disaster is putting it mildly. So I think it's kind of amusing that, again, they went right back to a similar scheme that they used under Chris Richard and Rod Marinelli. And I think that makes a ton of sense because that's your best hope for this defense is that that the guys that are here can run that scheme fairly well. And you add some new talent to that. And, that's kind of the beauty of it. If you're a Cowboy fan looking for hope that they can improve their fortunes, you don't need an elite defense to succeed with this offense. At least that's the logic. You now have Dak locked in. You've got the vast majority of your offensive line in place. You've got arguably the best receiver core in the league, and you've got Ezekiel Elliott. So, there's no reason why this offense shouldn't be able to regularly crack 30 points a game. And if it can do that, then obviously your defense only needs to get a couple stops a week for you to win the majority of the games you play. So I think that's the logic, and I think that's why they went back to that scheme.
All right, Dan Quinn's legit. He was at Seattle with Pete Carroll. He did some good things in Atlanta. There were a couple of times they were close. Well, obviously in the Super Bowl. But, Quinn is they have to be really excited about Dan Quinn as the defensive coordinator.
Is this thing working? Give me some sound, baby.
Yeah.
The Out of Bounds Show is powered by the award-winning golf courses at Dancing Rabbit Golf Club in Philadelphia, Mississippi.
Well, Blake Scott just told our guests that we can't say the word so Out of Bounds, 105.9 The Zone, ESPN, WRKS. You can edit that. The show is brought to you by the Golden Moon Casino Sportsbook. Bet $50 there. Play award-winning Dancing Rabbit Golf Club for $30. Our guests join us on the Shinerbach guest line. We welcome in former All-American wide receiver for the Florida Gators, now with the SEC Network. He is CD Chris Doering on the Out of Bounds Show. CD, what's up, buddy?
Bro, you really know how to make me feel comfortable between the cussing, the sponsorship by a beer, and then bringing in the Dancing Rabbit and the Golden Moon. I mean, all of those things are my vices, so I feel completely at home now.
I had to do it. Blake,
I love it.
Blake needs to do a little more editing before we head out for the day and grab some Shinerbach on the golf course. How you been, bud?
I'm good, man. It's good to catch up with you, man. Always beautiful time of year, man, when the weather starts getting better here in the South. We're talking about a little spring football, all while we're back to normal with the SEC basketball tournament, the NCAA tournament on the horizon, man. It just feels right.
It does. I'll be in Orlando for 7 days, starting Friday, 8 days Friday, and I'm looking forward to some of that Central Florida weather, although it feels great here, too, in Mississippi. So, CD, let's start.
Well, there's like 2 weeks in Florida where it's great to live here, and these are the 2 weeks, right, because it's low humidity, the temperature is bearable, and it's before it really starts to get too sweltering. So hurry down, man. You're going to have a good time in Orlando, bro. We're looking forward to having you in the state.
Perfect timing. Hey, let's talk quarterback position at Florida. Dan was able to find the guy in Kyle Trask. You and I have had many discussions on and off the air about how good Dan is at the quarterback position. Kyle had an amazing run. And, I thought Mullen and Kyle Trask did a great job. Now we're about to turn the page. And is it going to be Emory Jones? Is it going to be this young man from Gainesville? Who's the next guy for this Gator offense, CD?
Yeah, why I love you, because most shows I go on, they want me to talk about, the natural succession of Emory Jones taking over that position. I don't think it's a foregone conclusion at this point in time. Anthony Richardson, as you alluded to, a guy right here from in Gainesville that also was highly recruited, a big physical guy with the ability to run and a strong arm. We've seen him be inserted into some games last year as a true freshman where typically we would have seen Emory Jones. Now, Emory had his packages. He was involved in the red zone, particularly in the tight red zone run game. But, I do think it's interesting that they've gotten Richardson some reps and they're going to create some competition at the quarterback spot, as there should be. I think the thing that I'm most excited about with Emory is that he is almost like a throwback to the old days. And when I say the throwback to the old days, I meant where you would sit for your first couple of years. You'd redshirt, you'd sit behind a veteran guy, and then you take over for your final 2 years where you're physically and mentally mature and ready to move into that role. He's the different kind of story from what everybody else, particularly at the quarterback spot, where they look for instant gratification and wanting to play right away. So I am excited about what he was able to kind of dip his foot in the pool and to kind of get acclimated to college football, to put some size and strength on, and to learn from a guy in Kyle Trask who was one of the best in terms of preparation. So I'm hopeful that Emory Jones, gets his chance and wins that job, and Anthony can kind of sit behind him and learn himself. But I don't think it's necessarily a foregone conclusion at this point.
Mr. Touchdown with the Florida Gators, CD Chris Doering with the SEC Network on the Shinerbach guest line, talking Gator football and offense before we get to defense. Okay, so CD, if Emory Jones wins it, and let's say he's playing at optimal level, and Dan continues to develop him the next 6 months going into Labor Day, what would he be? what are your expectations of Emory Jones running the offense and playing really well?
I think it would look much more like what we've seen from some of Dan Mullen's offenses at Mississippi State with the usage of Dak Prescott, a guy that can put a lot of pressure on a defense with his ability to run. We've seen him involved in the zone read game with the RPO stuff. Like, he's incredibly athletic. And the thing that they've talked about a lot during spring practice so far, almost to the point of defending Emory Jones, is his arm strength. Dan talked this week about having, a cannon for an arm. He said he may not have quite the accuracy that Kyle Trask had, but in terms of pushing the ball down the field, they feel really good about his arm strength. So I do think that opens up some different opportunities in play calling where Kyle Trask was a willing runner. I think Emory Jones is a more adept runner. So I think this is going to look a little bit more like what you traditionally see from a Dan Mullen type offense, as opposed to more of a pocket-oriented offense that we saw with Kyle Trask the last 2 years.
So if the super stud freshman Anthony Richardson from Gainesville doesn't beat out Emory Jones, could you see kind of an 80-20 split and they create some situational things for Richardson, especially in the red zone, CD?
Yeah, I do. I think for two reasons. One, you always have to be developing that next guy. We know how physical this sport has become and how difficult it is to go wire for wire. So at some point in time, you're anticipating needing to use your backup quarterback. So getting him some reps, getting him some experience is important. But I also think you saw them more of the run specific, the quarterback run specific type plays. You saw Anthony Richardson getting those carries because he's maybe a little bit more physically stout. He in some cases reminds you a little bit of the physical nature in the way Tebow finished runs.
Yeah.
And so I think you could see him in some of that way. But again, I do think it's about trying to really develop the depth of your entire team, and Dan Mullen has shown the willingness, like his predecessor at Florida, the guy that he kind of looked up to, as he said from time to time, Coach Spurrier, who was always not afraid to insert the next guy, to have another quarterback ready to create that same level of competition at the quarterback spot that you do at every other position.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, kind of this evolution of Dan Mullen. He's got more Big Ten in him than people realize. He likes to run, a power spread, but yet you have the 2015 Dak season where all they did was sling it around to try to get him ready for the NFL. And you have the 2020 Kyle Trask season. So Dan is willing to put it in the air and really open it up. And I think Dan realized, just like Saban did several years ago, and some of these guys that leaned heavy on the run. Y'all were so before everybody's time in the 90s, slinging it around. You know that. It was still a 3 yards in a cloud of dust conference when I was in college in the 90s, except y'all. Y'all were the ones that, that were going vertical and spreading it out and so on. So I think that Dan wants to make the shift. Not that he won't run the ball and allow his QB to be a playmaker, CD, but I do believe that Dan is ready to go 60-plus throwing the football because of the talent at wide receiver and tight end coming out of high schools. Your thoughts?
Yeah, a couple things. First and foremost, in regards to the 90s, it was really cool to be a part of changing the SEC and the way that everybody had played. When you're forcing traditional run-oriented teams like Georgia and Auburn to go full wides to try to keep up with what you're doing, that's a pretty special feeling. But I think there's a little bit of a misnomer in that if you go back and look during those successful years in the mid-90s, we were pretty close 50-50 in terms of run and pass. Now the pass certainly set up the run, and we love the draw play off of the pass action. But I think the thing I love about Dan Mullen is that he's willing, and has talked about it a lot, to do whatever is going to be best for the personnel on his offensive roster.
Yes.
Whether that means converting more to a throwing-oriented offense, or we're going to run the football a little bit more. He's done whatever it takes to be successful in utilizing his personnel. Now I think what Florida needs to do this year, and maybe what the point of emphasis has been during the spring, is trying to run the ball more successfully. They have not been able to do that with much consistency. They haven't gotten much consistent push up front at all. I think Florida's offensive line, while they're very experienced, is limited in athleticism at times. They look top-heavy to me. If you go back and look at what Alabama does, I mean, these guys are big, strong freaks, but they're also extremely athletic. And when they get out on some of those gap scheme runs, you know, they're able to adjust and block defensive backs. And so I want Florida to evolve on the offensive line. They've got to be able to run the ball better in general. And I think having the threat of the quarterback run will help them do that. Now, to your point, they've recruited extremely well. Everybody's worried about losing Kyle Pitts and losing Kadarius Toney and Trayvon Grimes and those guys as pass catchers. But there's a lot of young, talented guys that are going to be stepping up, Henderson and Whittemore and Copeland. So I do think that they are in a good shape, even though you're losing a lot of numbers in production. I do think they're in good shape to continue throwing the ball like they have. They just got to complement it with a little more consistent run ability.
Okay, you may have just answered this to a certain extent, but Chris Doering, CD with the SEC Network on the Shinerbot guest line. How much of an impact has the Bama wide receiver boom impacted Mullen's approach, you think, in the last year, maybe two, and going forward? Because the Gators played Bama really, I mean, they played them really well in the SEC championship game. But how much of an impact do you think the 180 in T-Town will impact Mullen and maybe what he thinks he's got to do, CD, to get through Atlanta and get to the playoff?
Well, the days of winning 24-21 are over, in the SEC. You have to be able to score to keep up with the top teams, and Florida did that last year. Now, I love the way that Dan Mullen utilized talent on his roster. The evolution of Kadarius Toney from being an X-factor guy into a full-blown wide receiver that you could get the ball to within the flow of your offense, I think was one of the reasons why the offense was so successful last year. I mean, Kyle Pitts demands a lot of attention, but what Kadarius Toney was able to do from the slot and working some of those option routes and working some of the jerk routes, I mean, the guy was unbelievably explosive. So I think you're going to continue to see the need to throw the football and score in bunches. In Florida, what a great situation to be in if you're Dan Mullen, from the state of Florida, with the type of access to some of the best athletes and some of the best pass catchers and offenses that are largely throwing the ball around more than some of the college offenses are. So I do think the Bama influence and what they've been able to do, not only with the way that they score on offense and how they do it, but the RPO game. I mean, they perfected the RPO game from what Dable had done to Loxley and now what Sarkisian did. I thought Sarkisian's offense last year was as close to what we did at Florida in terms of route combinations, timing throws, as anything I've seen in a long time. I really enjoyed getting to watch that offense, and I think you'll continue to see more teams in the SEC feel the need to throw it around to try to keep up with what Bama's able to do. All-American
for the Florida Gators with the SEC Network. CD Chris Doering on the Shinerbot guest line. CD, I thought Grantham was gone. I thought, and I could be wrong, that Dan was hoping that he would, by the way, for our listeners, defensive coordinator at Florida, Todd Grantham, who's a good coach. I don't think he's elite, but he's good. I thought Dan may have been wanting for Todd Grantham to find a job, either a better one in college football or even the NFL, because Grantham has NFL ties too. Are you buying that? Do you disagree with that? What are your thoughts?
I don't know necessarily. I mean, I know those guys have spent time together at a number of different stops, and every time I've had a chance to be with those coaches, they've each talked very highly of one another. I think it's ironic, the fans a couple of years ago were freaking out this time of year because Cincinnati was courting Todd Grantham really hard. It looked like a foregone conclusion that he was going to be heading to the NFL. And now fast forward a couple of years and people were curious as to why Dan did retain him. Now they did get rid of a couple of the secondary coaches, made some changes there. And that may have been one of the most disappointing parts of the season last year, with as much experience and talent that you had in the secondary and as poorly as they played. It probably was the thing that stood out to me the most. That was the biggest surprise. But let's not blame that all on the secondary. As you know, Bo, part of what helps make secondaries look good is a good pass rush. And what Florida did not have last year, and I'm really concerned about, they don't have those elite pass rushers that Florida has been known to have for the last couple decades, that teams like Alabama do have on a consistent basis. Florida hasn't recruited as well there as I'd like them to. And so that is a point of concern for me as a whole. Are you able to control the line of scrimmage in the run game? Are you able to get pressure with just your front four? That's something I think Florida's going to have to find a way to do, is to get back to recruiting, signing, and developing the top defensive line talent in the country, but specifically here in the state of Florida.
Okay, so Mullen is hovering around number 10. That's still good. It's not great, but it's good. What are your thoughts, and what's the feedback from Gator Nation? Because, he's not recruiting in the top 3 or 4, but they're obviously signing really, really good classes and good football players. So can he do this thing hovering between 9 and 11, or CD, do you feel like he's got to move into the top 5 or 6? How do you see it?
Well, but what you're not accounting for and what the rankings aren't accounting for is the transfer portal. Dan has absolutely killed the transfer portal with 5-star talent going back to Van Jefferson, as you know, coming over from Ole Miss, who was incredibly productive for Florida. Trayvon Grimes was a 5-star guy from Ohio State. They got Justin Shorter, who's a 5-star guy from Penn State, who played well last year. Lorenzo Lingard from Miami, who we didn't even see play last year at the running back spot. You can go down the list and just name guys that were highly recruited when they initially came out of high school that now aren't being included in some of these recruiting rankings. So I think it might be a little premature to pass criticism on what Florida is. Definitely a different approach, but I do think that's going to be one of the things that you see teams do more and more. As guys put their name in the transfer portal more frequently, you're going to see that continue to happen. And Florida's got a couple of commitments. Eric Gilbert obviously has changed his mind since, but the Bowman kid, DeMarcus Bowman from Clemson, is another one that Florida's expecting big things from. So they may not be doing it the traditional way, but they're finding a way to get really good talent on campus and putting those guys in position to be successful.
Oh, I think it's brilliant. It's a destination. Florida is, I could argue could be the number one destination in college football when they're running like they should be. So I'm with you.
Yeah.
You're selling, it's a great destination. You're selling beautiful people, beautiful weather, and a program that has won the last 30 to 35 years. So I get where you're going. Chris Doering, CD, with the SEC Network on the Shinerbach guest line and the Out of Bounds show. What about Mullen in the NFL? Was there any smoke there? You think that was all just nonsense scuttlebutt? What were your thoughts as some of that was brewing maybe in, late December through the couple of weeks in January, CD?
It was interesting. I think there was a lot of people that were nervous around Florida's fan base about the idea of Dan going to the NFL. There were rumors about a relationship between he and somebody in the front office with the Jets and how that might make a lot of sense. One of the big topics, though, that's been talked about around here during the spring is the fact that Scott Strickland has not extended Dan Mullen's contract. Despite all the success, 3 straight years in the year 6 game, again to the SEC championship game, the contract has not been extended. And you can probably speak to this even better than I can from the origins of the relationship between Scott Strickland and Dan Mullen and some of the dust-ups that have occurred. There are rumors of a disconnect between the administration and Dan Mullen when it comes to the implications of the NCAA probation that was passed along to Florida because of some of Dan's recruiting, some of the comments and lack of awareness this year in terms of packing the swamp after going to Texas A&M and losing there in the middle of a pandemic where it didn't necessarily look great, only to find the Florida program has to put their activities on hold because of a flare-up with positive coronavirus tests. The Missouri scuffle at halftime that he fueled and the subsequent press conference in a Darth Vader costume, the comment about, our Florida football team from 2020 was last seen, that was our team in the SEC championship game. What you saw in the Cotton Bowl was not the 2020 Gator team. Like, those things necessarily sit well from what I hear, and has ruffled the feathers of not only administration but the fan base. But here's the thing that I say, like, who are you going to go get that's better? I think that's what fans lose sight of sometimes is, all right, we move on from this guy. Who are we going to go get that's going to be better? And I don't know that there's anybody better that's a better fit. Now, do I think that Dan Mullen should maybe temper some of his comments from time to time?
Sure.
Yeah, I do. But, that's who he is. He's a guy that's emotional and a guy that speaks his mind. But I'm interested to see how the relationship evolves or repairs itself between Scott Strickland and Dan Mullen, because it definitely does seem a little weird that they haven't extended his contract at this point.
That's interesting. All right. Well, I could keep. Well, I've got some theories on. Okay, I got a couple of minutes here, and we've got to get you back on in a couple of weeks, because I don't understand why we're 14 years in with Nick Saban, and to me, we really don't have one of the elite programs in the other elite programs, Georgia, Florida, and LSU. I think I'm going to stop there. Really chomping at their heels like they should be. Now, I believe Dan is good enough to get there. It'll be extremely difficult, but I don't think Kirby is, and obviously I don't think Ed Ogeron is. I don't think Jimbo is either. So, but that's something that we may, bite off next time and kind of look at. But all right, it's going to be interesting. They may take a slight step back on offense. They're still going to be good, and then they may take it, and I expect them to be better on defense. So it may almost be a wash.
Can't be any worse. I mean, that was a historically bad Florida defense last year. So I don't think they're going to be any worse. But you're right. I mean, they got 5 starters returning on offense. So they got some holes to replace. And I think the biggest, and I don't want to talk too long, I know we got to get going, but the biggest hole to replace is Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts was an absolute freak. You saw the difference in the offense, particularly in the red zone production when he was off the field. Look at that LSU game. Go back and look at how many points were left in that part of the field, because you didn't have your 6'6" tight end with all the athleticism and range he has in that area of the field. So they've got to find a way to replace him in their passing game, particularly down in the red zone.
We'll leave it there. Chris Doering, SEC Network, CD, Mr. Touchdown with the Florida Gators, joined us on the Shiner Bach guest line. CD, thanks so much, buddy. Glad everything's going well. Hope to catch up soon.
Let's do it, man. Enjoy your vacation, bro.
Be good. That's Chris Doering, CD with the SEC Network on the Shiner Bach guest line, Gator Insider 2, walking us through a little 2020 and 2021 Florida Gator football. We're live in the Bank Plus studio. The Out of Bounds Show, ESPN 105.9 The Zone, is brought to you by the Golden Moon Casino Sportsbook. Bet $50 there. Play award-winning Dancing Rabbit Golf Club for $30. All right. Always good to catch up with our friend Chris Doering, All-American under Steve Spurrier, and with the SEC Network. The show is also brought to you by Mississippi Urology Clinic. That's who you want to call if you're thinking about getting a vasectomy. You can go get a checkup. They'll walk you through how that's going to work. I did it 14 years ago. Simple, no pain if you do everything they tell you to do. And you know what I tell you all the time, kids are expensive. So after my second one, I decided to go get a vasectomy at Mississippi Urology Clinic. All right, hour number 1 in the books. Out of Bounds, ESPN 105.9 The Zone, brought to you by My Vasectomy at Mississippi Urology Clinic.